Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think they fell asleep. Okay, I realize it's been a long period of time, and you've got to endure me for the next hour before lunch. And then probably one of the most important things after lunch that we've all going to be doing is going to take place, where we have a little bit of work to do around some posed questions. And I mean that very sincerely. So the work that you will do with us, I think, is really the pinnacle of the day and a half that we spent. Okay, so I've been tasked to sort of wrap up some certain things from my experience. And I said rather glibly yesterday that I called myself a performance conversationalist. And that's actually how I earn my living these days. I work with just a very few number of organizations, ranging from a particular car manufacturer. I call them a toy manufacturer, but they're more than that, through to the International Ice Hockey Federation, the PGA of America, Swimming in Canada, and some specialist military groups. Performance is performance. The tenets of performance are basically the same whether you're trying to build the future hydrogen fuel cell cars, forget about the battery ones of the current era, but the hydrogen fuel cell cars, they're coming, through to making a decision not to pull the trigger at the other end of the spectrum. And then there's sport in between. Very similar. And I can assure you, I don't normally like to be parachuted in to give a talk to people. I don't think that's necessarily very productive, except for the fact that I believe very much in hockey. And because several people here have been through this system before, not just in one country, in a few countries. And even just a few regions of the world that decided to change things up and uplift their programs. I do not want to come across as too objectionable, but I am going to say some things that will undoubtedly grate with you. You may think, I'm already doing that. What is this idiot saying to me? It's because I can't attend to every single context and situation in the room. So I'm going to come at you with a blanket point of view, because we are all in this together if you truly believe in the construct of what we've been trying to do. And I applaud you organizationally, what you are doing on the British Isles. I really do. It is rare. I'm in a country where I would love to see all the gliding sports together. Bobsleigh, skeleton, luge, for example. But they're not. I'd like to see all the snow sports together, but they're not. Yet the number one snow sport nation on the world is together, Austria. Even our cousins to the south, the United States of America, it's the United States snow sports. So consolidation and reducing your overhead for administrative costs is one of the first steps to making sure that you have those precious resources to put into the technical side of the program. Plus, we've heard a lot about communication and effective communication. It allows for one targeted approach to getting your message out. One targeted approach to future benefactors and sponsors, rather than splitting up all the different activities. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of a journey here for the next hour. I'm going to make some glib comments. I try to show lots of pictures and not too many words on a slide, but I'm going to try and push you hard. Really. Anything I show you, you get. So, the clock is ticking, and I am not talking about the game clock. I'm talking about the click of the clock of your life. I mentioned that briefly yesterday. The clock is ticking. If I added up the amount of hockey experience in this room, and particularly when everyone else who's not here was here as well, we're over probably 1,000 years. Now, you may not know everything there is, but there's probably someone in the room or groups of people that have had exactly the same challenges as you. And then there's another group that has solved exactly the same challenges that you have faced already in this room, if you're prepared to work together. If. And when I said I don't like being parachuted in, it's because, classically, I will spend a few months getting to know an organization, literally a few months with several visits, one-on-one, in groups of 4, groups of 8, whatever it is. Maybe I'll put them through Lego Serious Play, for example, if you know what that is. A very sophisticated way of getting people to understand and communicate the challenges in the environment in which they operate. We use it all the way from the military in Afghanistan through to, as I mentioned, building a future hydrogen fuel cell car. Think of this. I will pick on that. So one thing I do, I have a group of 12 people, fairly high-ranked decision makers on a particular team, okay, and let's pick on that car manufacturer. And maybe they're the innovation team for a future hydrogen fuel cell car. I will have little plastic bags, Ziploc bags of 7 Lego bricks, all identical for the 12 people. There's even one brick that's got an eye on either side of the brick. I hand them out, and all I say to them is, build me a duck. 15 minutes. Okay, quite extravagant with the time. 15 minutes. So I go away, twiddle my thumbs, come back, and they're all proud. They've got their duck sitting in front of them as they sit around this table. Same number of bricks, 8 bricks, even a bit of a clue with the one with 2 eyes on it. I gave them that simple instruction because you can imagine you make the assumption that everyone knows what a duck is, and that with only 8 bricks, they're going to be somewhat similar. But I can assure you, after years and years and years, 12 people produced 12 radically different ducks from 8 bricks. So let's move that to a complex problem. A discussion around, perhaps, the engine of this particular car they're trying to manufacture. And if we can't get them to think about a simple task with simple instructions, such as building a duck, what do you think is going to happen when we get to something more complex? Which means the message is clearly around the argot, the jargon, the language that you use. And there's jargon in hockey. Every sport has its own jargon. You may even have regional jargon. I don't know your sport in the United Kingdom as much as I should. But I can certainly tell you it's quite different, even when a single hockey club in Canada. The coaches of the U10s compared to the coaches of the U14s, the U18s, they actually have different terminology. They even use the X's and O's diagrams differently from each other. And you've got these youngsters moving systematically through this landscape where the language is actually changing on them. So, I don't like being parachuted in, and one of the key reasons is I spend months and weeks working with a group. We set a plan, a course. Here we go. That's where we're going. Here's the benchmarks. The classic plan backwards, execute forwards. Plan, do, and review, and then implement any of the changes that might be applicable to the next plan. And even though we're on a linear timescale, the actual behavior set is a cyclical one that you repeat frequently. Then I'll come back about 6 months later, and they're off over in this direction. And one of the main reasons why that often happens is a new leader came into the mix who wants to stamp his or her sort of personality onto the project. And they deviate from the actual path that was set. Classically happens. It's not always that. It might be a technological change, it might be environment, it might be resources, it might be a board level decision that says we're not going to spend 10% of our overall turnover on R&D this year. And therefore, some of the channeling money that's being spent on the research towards the project goes out of the window, so a particular task can't be met. What I'm trying to say is that many of these plans get derailed. And they get derailed by us, largely, the significant adults. So my job is really to throw that proverbial rock into the water, cause some ripples. Don't pretend at all to know all the answers. But I want to make you think about things. Absolutely. We are, unfortunately, creatures of habit, which leads to some degree of complacency at times, despite the fact that we all know about Kaizen, and I'll refer to that in a bit. I talked about this quote earlier, and Wells Coates was really the inventor, or at least the ingenious mind, around the modern transistor radio. And he said this: "We must remember that the past is not always behind us, but more often in front of us, blocking our way." Ever so true. Kevin said it in his presentation about, oh, we've always done it this way. Well, how is that necessarily moving the marble forward? If you're not prepared to even think about the fact that, is there a better way? And often as not, there is, and often as not, there's not just one better way. We are what we repeatedly do. It's a classic one. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And that was written thousands of years ago. Aristotle. You often see that type of quote written on the walls of high-performance athletic centers. In fact, I guarantee if you got on the plane and flew to Victoria now, to the Canadian Sport Institute in Victoria, you would see that quote on the doorway or on the wall of the main doors leading into the athlete center. What I'm trying to say is, as Simon Sinek would actually try to push you to think about, always keep asking why. Why? Why do we do this? Why does it work or why doesn't it? Why do we not meet our target around this particular area? Why do we have these challenges, but this country doesn't necessarily? Whatever it is, be in the habit of asking why regularly about whatever you do. It's not a criticism. It's trying to get you into that mindset, that aspect of actually wanting to challenge yourself and others and uplift constantly. I'm sorry, I'm going to do these. These were the original slides. So this is instantly recognizable as a castle, correct? Okay, it's even on a beach with the sea in the background. And undoubtedly it was using some kind of shaped bucket to do this. But it's simply just sand. Now, with the right consistency, so that it actually stays upright, and you might think that is a high-performance sandcastle. Of course, until you turn around and walk 100 meters down the beach and someone's built this one. Exactly the same material, but just a little bit more creativity, a little bit more willingness to take a risk and do something different. And now this is perhaps a world-class sandcastle. The only problem with this, of course, is at the identical timeline that these two castles were built, someone across the other side of the planet with exactly the same material, but a different mindset, and perhaps begged, borrowed, and steal a couple of other resources, built this one. And this now becomes a world-leading sandcastle. And the difference between world-leading and world-class is this constant ability to keep pushing the envelope, Kaizen, continual improvement, not resting on the laurels, constantly looking for uplift, whether you're winning or losing. And I can assure you, I've worked with many organizations over those 6 Olympic cycles in Canada, that they only make decisions to change, or even contemplate change, when they lose. The very best organizations do it all the time, win or lose. if you really want to understand things to do around performance in the global sense, there is at least 3 different domains that I would suggest you find material to read upon. Emergency room medicine. In fact, there's a great book with a hockey connection that was written about high-performance emergency room physicians and their tactics and teams, written by Dr. Cal Botterill. You may recognize that name. Okay, he was a psychologist, is a psychologist that I worked with a lot from Winnipeg, with the Canadian teams in those first 2 Olympic cycles. And his son played in the NHL, and his daughter, Jennifer Botterill, Canadian, captain of Harvard's women's team, and also double Olympic gold medalist on Team Canada for women. Anyway, he wrote an amazing book around this. The next one, of course, is the military, and particularly specialist military groups, of which there are several across the planet, that you can find out about their particular systems. There are even spin-off groups that actually make a living out of talking about how they used to do things, whether it's the SAS, the SBS, SEAL Team 6, you name it. Lots to learn. And then finally, particularly as one of them's been in the news recently from a positive side, and the other one's been in the news from a negative side, and that's to do with space and deep sea exploration. All of these have dire consequences for underperformance. All of them. Now, we're not curing cancer, but we're dealing with the lives of youngsters who have one shot at being a youngster. Their lives, remember? Kaizen, probably the only tattoo that we should actually have. Continual improvement. It's a mantra, it's a philosophy, it's a way of thinking, and it's never ending. It's relentless. The relentless pursuit of performance. I've really paid attention to the talks we've had around communication and using technology to help. Well, when I started in about 2019 with swimming in the province of Alberta, we wanted to, and I managed to convince our CEO, that we would really do something about sending our message. I'm all about the Olympics, for sure, but there were about 10,000 kids swimming in that particular province from, say, 8 through to about 22 years of age. And yes, we put 4 onto the Olympic team for Paris. Oh, sorry, Paris, the last one, out of Calgary, for example. 2 made it to a final. But the real thing I'm interested in is getting the message out to the general public, because we want more kids constantly signing up to go swimming. Go do your Red Cross or I Can Swim program and try out to make a team or make a program at age 7 or 8. That's succession. Keep them coming. Lots of other activities children can do. Lots of other activities those parents can spend their money on for their children. So one of the things we did, we need to raise awareness. And the spin-off as a social plus, and you might want to think about this for hockey players, is if we teach all these kids to swim, and when they get to 14, they all do their bronze medallion life-saving, the spin-off is not only can they save their lives, they possibly, if it had to happen, save someone else's life. Pretty powerful social message, don't you think? Yeah. What's yours? What would hockey contribute as a value added to society, to your town, to the rink they play in, to their school, whatever it is? What about the expertise of all your volunteers? Collective expertise there. It's transferable when perhaps other organizations come knocking at the door needing help. People might remember if you've contributed to their success as much as yours. So we made a video. I would like you to listen to this. And it's about Swim Alberta, which is the provincial organization.
Swimming is unlike other sports. There are no excuses. There's no game-changing equipment. There's no hiding behind team dynamics. There's no blaming performance on others. It's just you, 2.5 million liters of water, and some parallel black lines. To succeed here, there are no shortcuts. It takes courage, dedication, ambition, and engaging every ounce of mental and physical strength. And the most challenging race is always with yourself. To support this level of determination, Swim Alberta is necessarily unlike other sporting organizations. For over a century, we've been just as fanatically driven, just as outrageously ambitious, and just as courageous in our innovation as Alberta's swimmers are. To give them every opportunity to reach their full potential, no matter what their own personal goal. We've never been afraid to go where no other swimming organization has gone before. We opened the first national training center and have become one of the premier provinces in sports sciences for swimming, introducing advanced tools like video analysis and altitude training. We developed Canada's first online clinics for officials and its first referee clinic. And over the years, we've initiated countless innovative new policies, such as those for coach compliance and transgender inclusion, that have since been adopted across the country. We spend our lives fighting for Alberta swimmers and their teams to compete faster, more often, and more fairly in events and competitions here at home in Canada and across the world. As a result, Alberta swimmers consistently outrank their competition and punch above their weight at the Canada Games, many going on to become Olympic and Paralympic athletes. Our developing athletes routinely outperform based on registered numbers, and Alberta has more registered, certified coaches per club program than any other province. We feel proud, passionate, and privileged to do what we do, because we believe swimming can be the foundation for a better life. We understand how it builds resilience, instills good habits and values, and personally rewards its participants forever. And we know winners in the swimming pool go on to become champions in the community, in the workplace, and in life. That's why we see our name as so much more than a label. It's a rallying cry. Swim, Alberta.
What's your message to that wider audience who are not part of you at the moment, have no connection to you, whatever domain they come from, whether they own a facility, they've got children in other sports, they're a school teacher, they're a multi-millionaire businessman who might be looking to invest in your programs? You have to tell a story. Our brains are hardwired for narrative. Forget that at your peril. Tom Watson, not the golfer, but the founder of IBM, said all leading nations, all leading organizations exhibit three things. One, they have a very clear vision of what they're trying to become. Two, they have a very clear understanding of how that vision actually behaves. And then the real trick, the third one, they start behaving like that vision long before they become it. You draw the line in the sand and you move forward. No wasting time. No letting the clock tick by. Jim Emmerling, an expert in change and change management from the Bay Area, San Francisco, he talks about, and it just I choose him because I've heard him speak a number of times, read much of what he's done. Lots of people talk in this area. But he distilled things down around change to 5 key areas that you need to understand. And it resonates very much with the learnings of Tom Watson. 1, clear vision. Communicate it to the entire family of that particular organization. They know what they're doing, and it is communicated outside of the walls of that particular community. You want to be kept honest? Tell the world what you're doing and how you're going to be measured for it. That leads to great transparency. Here's an excerpt I'd like you to just listen to, maybe a bit quiet. It's from an excellent documentary, In the Shadow of the Moon. Ron Howard, you probably know of him as a great director. It's really about the Apollo missions. Have a listen. Clarity of vision.
Now it is time to take longer strides. Time for a great new American enterprise. Time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement.
Politically, it was about beating the Russians, but those of us with a science bent or a curious bent knew it was more than that.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
Beautiful in its simplicity. Do what? Moon. When? End of decade.
He challenged us to do what I think most people thought was impossible, including me.
We go into space because whatever mankind must undertake, free men must fully share. But in a very real sense, it will not be one man going to the moon. We make this judgment affirmatively. It will be an entire nation, for all of us must work to put him there.
Pretty interesting. Do what? Moon. When? End of decade. And the other thing that slips people's minds, if you actually listen to what he said, to send a man to the moon and safely return him to the Earth. It wasn't over until they were back home. The other thing that we've heard a lot about is the aspect of commitment. You have to go all in. Ice Hockey UK has to go all in. There's no such thing as being 70% committed to something, or 60, or even 95. It's all in, just like in poker at times. It also does not need to be perfect. Every week, I guarantee we are becoming habituated to the world's software manufacturers that launch a product, version 1.1, and within a few days, you're at 1.9. And maybe a month later, there's version 2. We're habituated to that. They launch it, and you know there are bugs in because they send you fixes all night. Same with you. If you keep waiting for something, it'll never arrive. And you will not act. You will not do. It's simple when you say it like this. I recognize it can be difficult to overcome the intransigence. I recognize that it can be difficult to break the shackles of what you've already done. Or particularly where you're relying on other people who are working on some other timeline than you. But if you really want to push this marvel forward of ice hockey in this country, then you've got to do it. As I said, there's no white charger with a knight on coming to rescue you and wave a magic wand. This is not Harry Potter. So you have to pull the trigger. I apologize, I did this just recently, showed a couple of slides like this to the IHF Americas and Oceania group in Puerto Rico actually last week, and unfortunately in the audience was a young woman who had actually served in Afghanistan and was suffering from a little bit of PTSD, and unfortunately she had a little bit of an episode to which I apologize. But you understand the analogy I'm drawing here. Pull the trigger. You're going to have lots and lots of thoughts, some negative, some positive, lots of things you might be able to do, but you have to be ruthless in achieving and understanding your priorities and the order in which things can be done. If I want to do this, what do I have to have done first to get there? That's a behavior set. You must be flexible in all of this. You are an organization, a family, a community that doesn't have an unending level of resource. So you have to be creative. You have to beg, borrow, and steal. You have to use each other. Two are better than one when two act as one. Pretty simple. As long as you're all pulling in the right direction. Occasionally, you will have to hit the hazard warning light. There's no doubt about that. The people in this room probably going, oh, that Norris guy, he's full of it. And that's just on me talking. We haven't really started talking about hockey. You're going to have people that want to take pot shots at you all the time, whether they're in this community or outside of the community, whether they're even a facility owner or some level of government bureaucracy that you're dealing with. Lots of them. You have to be flexible, resilient, and use ingenuity, a much better word than innovation at times, to help you move that marble forward. And at times you can't do everything on your own. This is where either mentorship or the hundreds and hundreds of years of hockey experience we have here, plus your friends across the planet that have faced or are facing very similar challenges to you, some of whom will have solved them in some way. This is a little ditty called The 51st Door. Please listen.
Everyone wants something. We all have goals, desires. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Yet 99% of people either never make a move toward what they want or they burn out, right? The gym is always a lot less crowded May 1st than it is January 1st. When that realization hits that improving yourself won't be some walk in the park, people begin to fall off. It's no longer worth it for them. So how do successful people get past that monotony, that struggle? What is the mindset that supports that growth? Because obviously that's key, right? Athletes, entertainers, all these people that are successful in the business world, it's not so much their genetics that separate their potential from yours, as it is their mentality and how they view the world as an instrument, not an inhibitor. They know with 100% certainty that pushing will get them what they want. And this confidence enables them to deal with all the negativity and the suffering they have to face to get there. It's a means to an end. John Paul DeJoria. Guy is a billionaire. He founded Patron Liquors, Paul Mitchell Hair Products. And at one point in his life, this guy's living in LA, sleeping in the back of his car with his son, right? Homeless, he has nothing. And I was recently listening to one of his talks. Someone asked him, John Paul, how can I be more like you? How can I be the next big billionaire entrepreneur? And he says, I have two pieces of advice for you that are instrumental to any success you'll have. The first one is you need to acknowledge and accept that doors are going to be slammed in your face all the time. If you don't have the strength in yourself to keep walking, to keep moving to the next door, then you don't really have a shot. The second thing he said is, you need to be as enthusiastic on the 51st door that you knock on as you were on the first door. Because yes, door 1 through 50 could shut right in your face. But that 51st door could just be the one that changes your life. But if you give in or you let your energy fade, after a few failures, a couple negative experiences, you'll never be able to walk through it. And what a tragedy that would be. Arnold Schwarzenegger, back in his bodybuilding days, he's Mr. Universe, best bodybuilder in the world. He goes through these grueling 5-hour-a-day training sessions. Someone asks him, hey Arnold, how come every time I see you at the gym, you're smiling? Right, I look at the other bodybuilders in here, they're not smiling, they're very focused, very serious looks on their faces. And he says, because every rep I do, regardless of how bad it hurts, takes me one step closer to my goal. And that satisfaction brings me more happiness than anything else in the world. Both of these guys bring context to what it means to be truly committed to something. To what must be endured between right now, as you're listening to me speak, and the time you open your 51st door. When the gym, the office, the library, whatever it is in your context, when it starts to feel like a burden, and you'd rather be on the couch, or you'd rather be out with your friends, remind yourself of what that door opening is going to feel like, and why concentrating on your next step forward means everything.
Which brings us back to the dashboard. Very clearly. The dashboard for every activity stream you're dealing with. Finance, governance, succession planning, communication, the dashboard for your Learn to Play program, the dashboard for a league that you might be setting up, and get your mindset around what is important for each of those, but have the same level of rigor, the same process to actually instigate it and evaluate it and change where needed. Process. Which leads me to this book, The No Asshole Rule, written by Professor Robert Sutton at Stanford Business School. The world is littered with assholes, every single level of activity of humanity. Hockey is littered with them, players who are assholes, coaches who are assholes, officials who are assholes, administrators, parents, rink owners, guy that cleans latrines, they're there. But the problem with these people, every step of the way, is they lead to these things. Negative effects. You have a load of assholes within any sort of ecosystem. You don't get Kaizen. Why would anyone want to help uplift something when there's always these blockheads in the way? Innovation, same reason. Why would I want to help improve and innovate something? This guy's just going to tell me, oh, we've always done it this way. Or no, you're an idiot. Or whatever it might be. So you don't get much cooperation. And then, of course, over time, the organization starts to get a reputation that there's assholes around. So who wants to join and give up their free time and help this? Do you get team cohesion? And by team, I mean everyone that's involved in the organization. No, you don't. And you certainly won't attract the best. Interesting enough, there are a number of studies of Fortune 500 companies, you can look them up, I'll send you the references, by Harvard, looking at this phenomenon, and they can actually calculate a bottom line, the TCA, within the financial reports, the total cost of assholes. Quite simply. Now, I say it to you in tongue-in-cheek, but this is a serious book by a serious author. who's done a lot of work in the area. And there is real cost to these people. You cannot tolerate them. You do not need to be equally an asshole as you move them to one side. There's ways of doing things, but you must if you're going to move forward. Roles and responsibilities. So, if Ice Hockey UK is truly going to be a trusted source, you want to have a positive aspect to all those points I mentioned. You want to attract the best. You want Kaizen, you want innovation, you want cohesiveness, etc., etc. You get the idea? You get a reputation that's not like that, and you're going to struggle. Which leads to this. You can produce the coffee table book of your strategy. That is not sufficient. You must live your strategy, not simply have one. In the same way, don't simply tell the world in your book that you've got a mission statement. You've got to show the world that you're actually on a mission. You want recruitment of hockey in this country? Then you have to demonstrate that every single day, that you're out to get children and youth involved in your game. You want to get into the A pool or the top flight in the men's program, for example, or even, as I just heard, get the ladies even onto the radar of the world level. You have to do these things and communicate them. But good luck if you've got blockheads in the way. This is a classic. You're going to see Luke Skywalker, okay, and he's learning the skill of the Force, and he's with his mentor. Can you remember his name? Yoda. Yes. And of course he's learning, so he makes mistakes. Just like you teaching your young charges on the ice. They make mistakes. And what he's been doing, and what he was charged to do, was he had crashed his starfighter into a swamp. Boom! So Yoda was having Luke raise the starfighter out of the swamp with his mind. But at the same time, just to add a little bit of spice to it, using his lightsaber, he had to fend off 3 or 4 spheres buzzing around his head, blasting him with lasers. And then, of course, he failed. He got zapped in the head, got distracted, starfighter fell back into the swamp. And then this exchange happened. I need the volume up.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
Comes right back to that aspect of pulling the trigger. Do or do not. There is no try, because trying is lying. Pretty simple. So we can spend 2.5 days here and do all these plannings and things like this, but unless when you leave here, you start to do, it's all for naught. It's all for naught. And you've wasted that most precious commodity of yours. The one thing you can't buy and you can't get back once you've spent it, and that is time. Of which in this room, we've all got precious little. Coco Chanel, some amazing quotes from this woman. In order to be irreplaceable, one must always be different. So how are you going to be different as a sport organization, particularly dealing with children and youth, both genders, able-bodied and athletes with a disability, than all the others? How are you going to be a strange attractor to get that level of encouragement to want to be part of you? How are you going to stand out from all the other light bulbs? That's a serious question. And it starts with messaging that you live by. Kids love to compete. Parents love to compare. This sends that message at times that you have to understand that whilst parents may be footing the bill and you may see them as your clients, when it actually comes to the practical application of you doing many things, it's the children. And I reminded you yesterday that it's their lives, not even their parents. And they value and are motivated by different things than their parents. Here's a great one. This is a clip of a bunch of little girls in California who, and you'll hear the quotes from a rather interesting mother, okay, who definitely was moving outside the box, where her little daughter said that her brother had taken up skateboarding, and she asked her mother, "Why can't I?" And they became pretty famous, this little group of girls. Listen carefully.
3, 2, 1, go! We didn't choose the color pink. It just happened. Who's gonna win? Oh, I won. Look at your stuff.
The Pink Helmet Posse.
The Pink Helmet Posse is just a movement of girls to skate. It happened because my husband and his 2 friends got together and they all had daughters. When they showed up at the skate park for their skate date, they were all wearing pink helmets. And so they just started getting called the Pink Helmet Posse organically. Bella was 5 years old and her brother was taking skate lessons, and I remember her saying, "Why am I not doing this?" So we put her on a skateboard and she hasn't stopped since.
This is my room. This is my skateboard. It says, "Have a little fun today. Create your own happiness. Dream big. Follow your heart."
I think California had a big influence on who Bella is and becoming because of the lifestyle that you get to live here. I mean, she surfs and skates every day of her life. I don't even know if she knows how good she has it here.
I started skating when I was about 12, so I was in middle school.
I started skating when I was 5.
Must be nice. It's really good when you're young and you can get involved because it's like you have this big open canvas to kind of do whatever you want. It's a lot like art in that sense of creativity. And so girls like Bella, especially girls who start young, are going to have a real influence not only on people younger than them, but kind of anyone they come in contact with, because it's very inspiring, especially when a younger person's doing it.
I get scared sometimes, but you gotta face your fears and just do it.
One time in particular, she wanted to drop in the deep end of this really big bowl. I tried to talk her out of it. She was gonna do it. So I stood in the bottom like I could actually catch her or something. And she pulled it and she was fine. And then I'm all, "Hey, can you do it again so I can get a photo?" I do get scared, but she's better than me, so what do I know?
My dream is to have at every skate park a bunch of girls skating. My dream is when I go to my favorite skate park, I'm going to see more girls than boys. My dream is I want to be a dolphin trainer.
My hopes and dreams for Bella and for girls like Bella is that they don't hold themselves back from anything. They find something that they're passionate about and something that they love to do because it's really rewarding and it feels really great to love to do something so much. I can't imagine living this lifestyle anywhere else. If you can dream it, you can do it, and California is the place to do it. You know, it's just a really big melting pot of a lot of creativity, and I think Bella is a perfect example of that.
Environment and significant adults that allow that kind of freedom and encouragement. It's all about leadership, of course. Leading the way. Actually having a plan. Doesn't mean to say you can't change it over time, but you make changes based on informed decisions. They have strong leadership. You've got a clear idea of where you're going as an organization and as a family. Leadership, clear purpose, and then performance. You know, with the International Ice Hockey Federation, we talk about minimum participation standards. I've been trying to challenge them over the last few months about calling it minimum performance standards. I don't care whether you're talking about governance, administration, participation numbers, the Learn to Play program, the high performance. It still can be measured as a performance metric, each one of those. The video I showed communicated the campaign of Swim Alberta. The education, therefore, or at least the information to the body of adults in particular who would see that. And we talked about your parent information packages yesterday. What is the value proposition of getting involved in hockey? What is it? What is it for the 12-year-old, the 16-year-old, the 20-year-old, the volunteer? You need a clear idea. You have to communicate that succinctly to whoever the audience is. Here's a good example. This is an investment individual from Toronto. Just like the Kennedy speech, incredible clarity of what this business organization stands for and does.
Purpose. It's in our name. It's what drives us. And it's our commitment to you. Hi, I'm Sam Safe. My goal has always been to make investing for Canadians better and cheaper. That's what Purpose is all about. We take a long-term perspective that combines low fees with a real focus on risk management. That's investing with purpose.
To learn more, speak with your advisor or visit purposeinvest.com.
Well, with a little bit of investigation to find out whether that is all true, I trust that individual and want to invest. Pretty clear what they were standing for. Which leads to this concept, your guiding principles. And this definitely comes through from Lego Serious Play. What would be the 5 to 7 key tenets that you could actually tick for every single decision your organization makes? From the daily, to the weekly, to the monthly, to the quarterly, to the yearly, to the quadrennial. Do you have them? What does that behavior set look like? Have you gone through the exercise of actually distilling them down to those crucial ones? Because obviously there's a myriad of possible ones. Which leads to the aspect that it all starts with governance. Governance linked to the integrity of your organization and the people that work within it. Whether it's your club, or whether it's a larger organization, such as even the foundation. The philosophical underpinnings of why, comes back to why you exist. Sorry, I should be holding this, shouldn't I? Ethical leadership, ... question mark. You know, in Canada at the moment, you can't coach at any level unless you've actually taken the course through the Coaching Association of Canada, making ethical decisions. No one can do it. Can't do anything. You can't go and stand on a pool deck of a swimming pool, go to an ice arena, nothing, unless you've at least done that. And you can do it online. They make it as easy as possible. Which leads again to, therefore, your guiding principles and your values. And remember, these are the behaviors that you exhibit when no one's looking. All the time. Which comes down to people. Again, why you're not going to tolerate assholes. You move them. And understand this. Volunteerism is not an excuse for poor performance. It is not. What does your on-ramping look like for all your volunteers? They put on your logo. They therefore represent you. Are they doing a good job or an awful job? But I hear all the time, oh, I'm just a volunteer, or he's just a volunteer. No, there's no such thing as just a volunteer. You're a volunteer. You're part of this organization. And certainly if you put the shirt on with that logo, whatever it is, your club, the foundation, Ice Hockey UK, I don't care what it is, better be behaving correctly an advocate for that organization, an advertisement for that organization positively. Everyone must know their role. I've chosen this one. It's an old clip now, but it's the Mercedes-AMG Protonus practicing, in the wet actually, their pit stop. 22 people back in 2013 around the car, 3 people on each wheel. One person of the 3 actually dealing with taking the wheel nut on and off. One person taking the current wheel away, and the next person putting the other wheel back on. And then you had 2 jack people, one at the front, one at the back. You had a person that was there actually communicating with the driver. There was another person that would have been dealing with maybe some angles of attack on the various foils of the car, depending on the kind of instructions coming through. These cars take currently around 2 terabytes of information from the car telemetrically in a 2-hour race. 2 terabytes. Heavily encrypted, of course. Oh, why did that not play? Excuse me. It should be playing. No. Yeah, I do, but I don't know how to get there from here. Oh, I've got it behind. I'll do this. Here we go. Sound? Sorry. No, it's going. I'll talk you through some of this. I'll just play it again from the start when the sound comes in. Okay. Because I want you to notice a few key things. Here we go. No? Okay. We'll do it in silence. Notice the T yellows on the pit stop box, right? Those are painted every single year. And you'll notice the inch markers. These drivers practice getting the center of that nut on the 0 point on each T. Remember, they're coming down that pit lane at about 50 kilometers an hour. That can do an awful lot of damage to humans standing in the way. And any point at which they are off the actual set point wastes time for a pit stop to be truly competitive in this day and age, probably under 2.2 seconds. The current record's about 1.7 seconds by McLaren last year in the heat of a race. Notice at the front, there are 2 jackmen. The one in the white is a backup in case the guy in the green fails. You'll also notice that the jack was articulated. He came in straight and then moved to the side, and it articulated because he could pull it away from the car faster. That's the type of thinking that goes into this. The year before this, when they still allowed refueling in the car, okay, they had a massive pipe which was insulated. Now, you think that's for fire protection. No. It was actually because the fuel was cooled to about 8 degrees centigrade, which meant it was more dense, which means in the few seconds you've got to pump this fuel into the car, you can put more fuel into the car in those 2 seconds. Also, they weren't fiddling around with a fuel cap. It was just simply a male-female connector and a big lever to start the flow. Meanwhile, all those other 20-odd guys had to get everything done inside that 2 seconds so that as soon as the fuel component was pulled away, the signal was given for the car to leave. The key thing I'm trying to say is this might be analogous to your volunteers in your organization, all knowing exactly their role, all having practiced that role, all understanding the accountability of that role, and not trying to do everything else. That one single role is what you have to do in the minute of preparation, the 2 seconds of activity, and of course when you have to put the toys away at the end. Or it could be the roles and responsibility of your organization. The best organizations do this, and they prepare relentlessly. They rehearse relentlessly. And I've got a little quote that wasn't original to me. I just found out about it, but I think is excellent, and I'm just going to tell you about it. It was this: we often talk about we are practicing till we get it right. Sounds reasonable, huh? Spin that a little bit and think about real performance. And listen to this. We practice and practice until we can never, ever get it wrong. Different mindset. So not we practice till we get it right. We practice and practice until we can never get it wrong. Performance on demand. Any time, any place, under any conditions, you get to the performance level that's required. The only caveat to that is, in general terms, across everything else, is live by trying to do less wrong. Trying to do less wrong. Right. Which comes back to this. Although I showed a rather linear aspect to leadership, this is more now of a transformational aspect. Certainly, you have a leader, but you understand the concept of getting people together, all of whom have different skill sets, perhaps. So at times, the de facto leader may have to step back and allow someone else to lead a particular aspect or project, because they're better suited to that. By all means, keeping control of everything, but understanding how to work in a symbiotic, yet progressively performance-oriented group. Plan backwards, execute forwards. It's a classic. I can tell you in the Olympics, I'll tell you right now, what are we aiming to do the men's 100 meters freestyle on July 31st in 2028 in Los Angeles at 7:30 at night? That's when the final's going to go. And it will go at 7:30 because of television. You can't stand on the block and say, oh, I've got a bit of a sniffle. Can I come back next week and swim it? No, the race is going to go. And if you want to win that race, I guarantee those men are going to swim 45 seconds. Current world record's 46. But here's the real trick. Not only do you have to swim 45 seconds to stand a chance of getting on the podium, the evening before, you've probably got to have swum very close to that to be one of the 8 for the final, out of the semi-final of 16. That morning, out of the hundreds, you've probably got to have swum at least a high 46 to be one of the 16, to be one of the 8. And then here's the real trick, because you're students of the sport. You know that the year before, if you wanted to be one of the 3, you needed to be ranked in the top 5. Pretty interesting sport. No hiding, really, not at all. Plan, do, review. Constant. It's never, ever over. And once you've done the review, you look at what worked, what didn't, how can we change, how can we improve, and put that into the new plan. And you do it religiously and frequently, depending on what the metric might be. With me? Here's an interesting one, a signature process. If I asked you right now to write here, we're just going to have 2 tools, a piece of paper and a pen, and we're going to go through the process of writing your signature. So we would all do exactly the same thing. Take a few seconds, but we would all come up with something completely different. I love the fact around signature processes more than best practice. Signature processes belong to you or your organization. What is the signature process of warm-up for the GB men's team when they go to the World Championships? What is it? I should be able to, like, not with no, uniforms on, watch them go onto the ice, or watch them in the dry land, and I know, oh, that's GB. That's their signature process. What's the signature process of how you run an AGM? It belongs to you. It's the Ice Hockey UK and its affiliates way. You heard about the Swiss Ice Hockey way. I can tell you exactly about the Canadian way. You heard about USA Hockey's way. Well, what's yours? And these processes doesn't mean to say they're fixed totally. They exist until such time that you have improved them because of Kaizen. Here's a great one. Now, don't laugh. I am an international member of Tottenham Hotspur in the Premiership by the skin of their teeth. And there's probably about, I don't know, 400,000 or 500,000 of us. But every year on my birthday, I get a signed card from the manager, who in this particular example was Andre Villas-Boas, right, 2 or 3 managers ago. Okay? Now I know, okay, that he's just sitting at his desk and he's got an assistant who's handing him his cards and he's signing. But do you think that really makes me, sitting in my little ivory tower, snowy Calgary, because my birthday is December the 7th, and I get a card from the manager of Tottenham Hotspur on my birthday, that doesn't make me feel as though I belong? Of course it does. Whoa! Didn't even see a game. I hadn't seen a game there for 3 or 4 years. But I get a sense of belonging by them acting with a signature process of wanting to reach out and touch their international supporters. How do you touch your supporters? What's your signature process? Who picks up the phone to answer the next irate call coming through? And how is that handled? So change and evolving is also part of the process. I talked about me looking in the mirror every day and wondering where that debonair, young, handsome man went. Change happens. Live with it. This environment factor, which I think has been stressed to you over 2 days, is totally under your control. It really is the thing you control, with or without ice. And this is the thing that brings those kids and participations back session after session after session. Ignore this at your peril. Remember the diagram that Kevin showed of the rink with almost the McDonald's playground in the middle of it? Yeah. By design, not chance. It needs your thinking. You have the experience, you have the hundreds of years of knowledge about hockey if you allow yourself to think appropriately, if you allow yourself to expand this aspect and not simply do the same stuff over and over again. Be bold, be courageous, take the leaps of faith. Refuse to be average. Absolutely. We talked about that philosophical underpinning. Refuse to be average. That's great with you. Oh my God, average. No. If you want to be a great leading nation in hockey, you've got to start being that as soon as possible. It won't be necessarily on the ice, well, at least not in games at the senior level, but it might be in terms of having world-leading practices and coaches for every on-ice program or dryland program you do, including street hockey. Where people make mistakes is they say they're going to do these things, but they don't actually do them. And they don't hold each other accountable. One of the reasons is they don't tell the world that they are going to do these things, and by when. Please be a human being and not simply a human doing, notwithstanding what I said about doing things. Being a human doing, you just go through the routines and you get into the rut of the daily stuff. It's Monday, I do this. Be a being and live this life of yours. In the same way you're going to live this strategy and live the relationships that you have. You know, you have a 1 in 400 trillion chance of being born. That's the reality, 1 in 400 trillion chance. So 3 years ago, Statistics Canada and Health Canada said the life expectancy of a male was about 80 years, and for a female, 84 years of age. That's roughly 29,000 days for the males and about 30,000 days for the females. Now for me, that means I've got about 14 years left, which is about 5,110 days. The only problem is, of course, I'm asleep for 1,708 of them. And even worse, I'm sitting on the toilet for 43 of them. Thank God that's quality time. So, we talked about the little kids and the silhouettes getting into youth and young adulthood yesterday, but the rest of us are a little bit to the right of that particular diagram. Don't squander your time for yourself and for the organization and for these children, or for the national teams. The clock is ticking. And remember, as I said, it's the one thing you can't buy and you cannot get back once you have spent it. Pull the trigger. Do. Last video. It's called A Wolf Among Sheep. I'll probably raise my hand when I want you to pay attention to the penultimate statement that's made, because it's a question for you if you listen to it.
They said I'd never get to this point, but here I stand. They warned that success is unlikely, that victory is improbable, and maybe so. But if this was for everyone, I wouldn't want it. They pointed to their own limitations and proclaimed them to be mine. But that's the thing about limits. They'll exist wherever you place them, and I have placed mine behind me. See, human beings make things unnecessarily complicated. Instead of drawing a direct line from point A to point B, we create 100 reasons why it's too hard, too tough. We construct distractions. There is no hard, there is no easy. There is a goal, the price that must be paid, and the eyes observing from a distance, wondering just maybe if they could do the same. The saying goes that a wolf need not concern himself with the opinions of sheep, that those who watch and admire are often the first to throw stones, to criticize, to condemn. But listening to them contradicts the very thing that gives the wolf its power, its strength. His ascent is threatening, not because he is like everyone else, but because he dares to be different. There will be a point when the mountains tower over you, the oceans obstruct your way, and the masses tell you no. Perfect. Right now is not a decision that involves debate. This is no democracy. This is a promise unfolding before your very eyes. This is truth, the new reality. It's about embracing what makes you different, not hiding from it. I'm fighting for separation, walking into what most avoid in pursuit of a return that most can only dream of. And as far as I'm concerned, you can either do the same or spend your life criticizing and wishing that you did. Sheep stay within the confines of what they know, angry at those who left, who wanted more, yet angrier at themselves for staying right where they are. This is all we get. One rodeo, one opportunity. So before you make your next move, look hard at your reflection and ask yourself, are you a wolf or a sheep?
live accordingly.
Finally, work hard, have fun, make history. Jeff Bezos said that recently. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Any questions for Steve before we move to the workshop part? Questions, comments? Nothing? Yes.
Thanks for that. So I worked 6 years for Toto Wolff as the team principal on Mercedes Formula One. He's an extremely demanding person, and there's a high degree of perfection, as you'd expect. And I just wonder if you'd like to comment on, I heard what you said, there's no average, and just because you're a volunteer doesn't mean you can't perform. But in that environment, you know, people are lined up to be on that pit crew. They're highly motivated individuals. Those are not volunteers in a minor hockey association. So my question is, how do you temper, or should we be tempering, our expectations in terms of what we can expect from people in order to retain them? You know what I mean?
Absolutely, most definitely. In fact, I just had a call from Toto. What I would say to you is this, is that whilst I would certainly not criticize where you're coming from in terms of that, and we tend to think about payment, we think about the back pressure of other people wanting the position. But I'm trying to tell you that in the world's leading organizations, that's actually unacceptable. You have to look at what would be the motivator. They're not going to be paid necessarily, although, for example, Hockey Canada does now provide goodie bags and payment to its volunteers, even though everyone and their dog wants that logo in Canada. It's about finding the rationale why. It's about tying the why to the children and youth or the national team, and that vicarious association with that, and the, if you like, the element of doing good for something beyond simply oneself. And so that actually comes back to, are we selecting the right type of people? It places a great load, for sure. But to your point, you've worked in one of the most demanding environments on the planet, by far. I could have put in my list of ER and military and space and deep water, Formula One for sure. And there are some other examples, but I chose those three. But Formula One for sure, they have, you're right, people want to be the mechanics in the workshop and work inordinate hours. And you've probably seen, obviously, the state of a garage of a Formula One team. You can literally eat off the floor, even when they've just changed the engine out completely. The key thing is coming back to the cadre of people, that common bond. It comes back to you establishing what that actually is about. That takes some work. It almost, you appoint the person who's going to be the head of the culture of your volunteers. It could be quite easy around an event. We just were in Zurich at the World Champions, for example, and the Swiss volunteers were absolutely spectacular. Absolutely, and they came from all walks of life, the people that drove all the Skoda cars or sent you to your seats or whatever it might be. But they clearly, the pride in them was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And so what I'm saying to you, it's now really put these hats on about how you can look at the culture of your volunteers. Event specific or league specific, learn to play specific, whatever it might be, maybe even something mundane. There's a classic book, don't boo me, but one of the best books actually on leadership was actually written by Rudy Giuliani. I know, he seems to be a bit of a wingnut these days, but it was about his experience of when he was mayor of New York City. And it's simply called Leadership. You can buy it on Amazon. Okay, it's in a paperback now. The chapter titles alone were almost a checklist for high performance. Chapter 1, first things first. Chapter 2, prepare relentlessly. As you went down the list, there was another one called weddings discretionary, funerals mandatory. And when he was mayor of the New York City, if there was someone that was being associated with the city, maybe a supplier or someone that worked for the city or something, and it was a wedding, he would make it discretionary if he sent a representative of the city. But for funerals, he made it mandatory. And it comes back to a guiding principle of why, and the rationale was this. Weddings are easy, certainly compared to funerals. They're fun, they're uplifting, there's the happy couple, there's food, there's dancing, bridesmaids, all that type of stuff. Whereas funerals are difficult. The conversations are difficult, even for the Irish in their party wakes. And I don't mean that in a facetious way. And so the aspect comes back to he was creating that culture of when they were going to do these things, these were the expectations. These were the expectations. And so I would actually challenge us to think, no, we have expectations at these levels. Sure, they might not be the same as if you're earning $1 million for a particular role and really be accountable, but you still be accountable. Putting on this logo, whatever it might be, your club, the county, the Ice Hockey UK, whatever, brings with it some level of responsibility. And then, depending on who the audience is that you're dealing with, brings another aspect. If it's children, our most precious resource, there is another level of duty of care compared to maybe simply it's the audience coming to a game and you're a volunteer. So your point is well taken, but I would challenge us to think, you're right. I wouldn't necessarily think a volunteer and the realms that we've talked about would have the same sort of living, breathing it 24/7 as one of those mechanics might do, but there is an expectation of what the minimum performance standards should be for every one of those roles. The key thing is, are there other rewards that the person would actually value within that? So there's the esoteric aspect of, and the altruistic aspect of doing some good and helping out. Great. Reward that. Have the person that gives them that verbal encouragement and verbal reward. But then what else might they, do they get the jacket? Do they get all their meals paid? Do they get to meet the team if they're dealing with the team or something, whatever it might be? So there needs to be some kind of that value-added proposition within it, but it doesn't have to be monetary necessarily around your volunteers. But there should almost be some kind of understanding of the role that's going to be played, which might vary across overall. Someone that's dealing with a league over several months compared to someone that's dealing with a tournament over 5 days or something. Do you see what I'm saying? But I think it's an excellent question because I get it all the time, and it's why I come after that whole aspect of volunteerism hard. Because at the end of the day, I'm very lucky. My brother-in-law in the little village of Follyfoot just up the road outside of Harrogate, he's one of the few copyright lawyers in the United Kingdom. He's a trademark specialist. And he is huge about protecting brand and brand identity, and particularly in this world of massive counterfeits, for example, that are going on. And he talks to me, because I turn up at the house sometimes, and I'm usually wearing the clothes of some of the teams I'm wearing with, and he asked me some serious questions. He said, why are you wearing that? Why are you wearing that jacket? Okay? Canadian Swimming isn't here. And you're going to walk down the road, it's got Canada across your back, it's got their logo on the front, and you're in the middle of Harrogate, and it's 32 degrees. What are you saying? Just an example. And he's quite right. And so for you, you want to defend your brand relentlessly at all levels. And that really starts with the performance expectation of everyone associated with that, volunteer or not. As I said, it's up to you to decide what kind of reward, other than just simply the altruistic aspect of helping, that you decide to give for certain roles. And I would expect there to be a sliding scale, for sure. Some people give up a huge amount of time, for example. Some people actually expend some of their own money to do these things as well. But great question.
Awesome. Yeah, great question. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Steve. Great job. Another great job.